friends, welcome to Physics Therapy. Our today's lecture starts with the first chapter of CBSE Class 12, that is electrostatics. As we have learned in the first lecture, in the introduction lecture, that the first chapter of the syllabus is electrostatics. This chapter deals with the charge which is in static condition. That's why the name of the chapter is electrostatics. So let us start. This chapter starts with a basic concept known as charge. So let us know what is the meaning of charge. Friends, have you ever heard the pace of your heart? Your heart beats 300 million times in its lifetime and finally stops at one moment. How does your brain work? How our brain does brings out any relevant information we need at any moment. When it rains, you see some intermittent lines of light between the clouds and accompanying thundering. What may be the reason for this? What is that invisible thing between your mobile phone and your friend's mobile phone that takes your conversation from here to there? It is clear that there is no role of gravitational force in all these processes. So, what is the underlying force that can give us the answer to these observations? Beating of our heart, the origin of light, and the invisible communication between modern devices, etc. Behind all this, there is a very important and fascinating discovery. This discovery was a fundamental property of substances called the electric charge. Apart from this, many other daily life events, which also appear to be mechanical, are actually of electrical origin. In particular, the solid nature of materials, their softness and permeability also depend on the electrical properties. The emission of light, formation of colors, function of brain and our heartbeats all are dependent on electrical properties of matter. We learned about these properties of we learned about these incidents and other observations like these in this chapter. So, our question, what is charge? What is charge? What does it mean? Think that what is the meaning of charge in our casual conversations, like someone is the in charge of something. What does it mean? This term we use in our daily life, in charge of exams, in charge of discipline, etc. So, what does this term charge mean in our daily life? Rubbing a plastic comb with dry hair, making small pieces of paper attract towards it, deviating a thin stream of water with the rubbed comb in wool. By showing these magic tricks, we can surprise kids, as there is always a scientific fact behind every magic. The science behind the magic is always fascinating. Science behind all these examples, which we right now heard, is known as electric charge. Here in this diagram, in this photo, you can see this balloon is getting attracted towards the dry hair of this boy. It is a magic or a science. Ancient Greek residents had knowledge about it all along. They saw that the gum extracted from the trees dried and turned into a substance known as amber. When amber is rubbed with cat's fur, when amber is rubbed with cat's fur and brought near small pieces of paper, it attracts them. There are other similar incidents like this: the crackling noise when we take our hand near a TV screen, crackle sounds when wearing or removing woolen or synthetic clothes. The reason behind all these observations is again the electric charge. So, again the same question: what is electric charge? Electric charge is the property of matter due to which it can cause some substances to acquire some special abilities of attracting other substances. Here remember that the attraction between matter due to its mass is different from this, although mass is also a property of matter. So the matter has two properties: mass and charge. The property of mass you have already studied in your previous class, and due to property of mass there is also a force of attraction that is called gravitational force, and due to this property charge, the force between the objects is known as electrostatic force. Let us understand with some examples. Suppose a glass rod is rubbed with a piece of silk and it is tied by a thread in the middle. Suppose here we have a glass rod, it is rubbed with silk and tied at the middle with a thread, and let us hang it. Another glass rod which is also rubbed with silk, when brought near the first glass rod, these glass rods move away from each other. This gives a clear observation that some force is pushing the hanging rod away from the second one. How does it happen? Magic or science? As you can see, there is no contact between these two rods. In another experiment, take the same glass rod, rub it with the silk cloth and hang it like earlier. But now the second glass rod has been rubbed with cat's fur. Then what do we see? The rod which was hanging comes closer to the second glass rod. Again, there is no contact between the rods. The property of attraction or repulsion between the substances which appears when they are rubbed is called electric charge, and this process is called charging, and the body which acquires this property is called a charged body. In these examples, here bodies are getting charged, but it is obvious that there is a difference in their property of charge. Therefore, it can be concluded that charge on these bodies is different, and it is of two types. Two types of charge. From these experiments, it is also ascertained that the objects with the same charge repel each other and the objects with the opposite charge attract each other. Like in this example, it is glass rod rubbed with silk. Similarly, the second rod is also a glass rod rubbed with silk. So it means the charge on the both rods is similar. So as you see, if the charge on both the rods is similar, they repel each other. The first rod moves away from the second similar rod. Now in the second example, this rod is a glass rod rubbed with silk, but the second rod is a glass rod rubbed with cat's fur. The second rod is again a glass rod, but it has been rubbed with cat's fur. And what do we see? In this case, the second glass rod attracts the first rod. So this is a clear example that in both the cases the second glass rod was similar to the first rod, but in the first example glass rod rubbed with silk repels the first rod. In the second example, the second glass rod rubbed with cat's fur attracts the first rod. It means both the glass rods are charged, but they are showing different property. It means the charge is of two types. These types of charge are termed as positive and negative. And remember that this is just a nomenclature. Negative charge on a body does never mean that the charge on it is less than that on the body which has a positive charge. This nomenclature was given by the American scientist and philosopher Benjamin Franklin. By giving names like this, positive and negative, the underlying cause of all the substances being uncharged can be understood. For example, if a positive and negative charge on an object is equal in quantity, then that object will appear to be neutral from charging point of view. The charge may also be transposed between one object and another and between different parts of the object. The study of the effects caused by stationary charged matter is studied under the subject known as electrostatics. In the next lecture, we will know how the bodies are charged, what are the methods of charging. Keep connected and keep learning.